Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast, where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right alongside
Connor Baltazar.
And today we are joined by a very special guest, as well as friend of the show. He is a very powerful man, one who has screamed a lot with us at basketball games, as well as covering a great deal of basketball games in his own right. A very knowledgeable person who's been in the K-State media sphere for a little bit of time. Everyone, please put your hands together for Nathan Enserro. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm good. I've just been watching basketball all day. It's a snow day, which is great.
Yeah. The rare 2 snow days we've had in 87 years.
I was gonna say, I think 2 to 3 snow days that we've had since I've been at K-State have been in the last 3 weeks. So
I walked out of class yesterday, and one of my classmates, because this was after they'd already canceled for today, one of my classmates goes, "Wow, I really like this new president."
Hey, man.
My understanding of the situation is it's actually the provost and not the president that makes that call, but whatever, you can blame the president.
I'm choosing to blame him, or give him credit, I guess, in this case.
Yeah.
But why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, so I have been with the Collegian for 5 years now, which is weird to say. Most people, are 3 or 4 at most, but I got my undergraduate degree and I went right into my master's because I graduated right at the beginning of the pandemic. And the school was going to pay for me to do my master's and pay me to do my master's, which is great. So I'm a graduate teaching assistant, which basically means that I do a lot of grading and I substitute teach sometimes. And I'm assigned to 3 different classes within the School of Journalism and Strategic Communications specifically. My undergrad degree was in PR, and I have covered almost every sport I think that we have at K-State for the Collegian in some capacity. I checked earlier today, I have 381 articles over the last 5 years. And all but one of them have been sports.
What was the one that wasn't?
It was a class for the news and feature writing course. There was an article I wrote for news and feature writing about a professor who is, I think he's in the philosophy department, or was. I'm not sure if he's still around. This was 6 years ago. But he was writing a piece of research, or I guess of argumentation, because it's philosophy department, about the use of the term food porn and the fetishization of food. Yeah, welcome to episode 69, everybody.
Welcome.
But yeah, so I think he's still around. He was an assistant coach on the debate team, but he was also my speech teacher at the time. So that's my one non-sports article, but everything else has been sports. I've covered 3 seasons of men's basketball across the 5 years, and all 5 seasons of women's basketball across the 5 years. If you follow the women's basketball team closely, my first season was Shaylin Martin's last season. So Shaylin Martin, Kayla Goff, Peyton Williams are all folks that I've gotten to cover, as well as obviously the folks that are on the team now.
That's awesome. So now that everyone knows who you are, which, by the way, follow him on Twitter. He makes excellent tweets, as well as live tweeting several games. But now let's just get into the meat of the episode. And the first thing that we have to talk about is the news that broke earlier today, and that is the news about, I suppose, former, at this case, men's basketball head coach Bruce Weber. He resigned earlier today, I believe around 10 o'clock this morning.
It was 10:30.
Yeah. But luckily for him, before we get into discussing our thoughts about it, Bruce Weber has been a class act about it. And he had probably the most wholesome statement that I've ever seen in regards to I have 2 jobs lined up already. And that's to be a very loving husband and a loving grandfather to my 4 very active grandchildren. I'm sorry, how can you hate this man? But other than that, what are your general thoughts on his resignation? Then we'll give ours because guest first, hospitality.
Well, so I wrote a column about this last night, but I think that it's correct to have a nuanced opinion on Bruce Weber. Like, anyone who just absolutely loves him and thinks he's infallible is wrong, but there's a lot of folks that have just hated him from the start, and I feel like they didn't enjoy any of the success that he had at K-State because it was Bruce and because his name wasn't Frank Martin or wasn't Brad Underwood. And I've been very critical of Bruce over the years. I actually wrote part of and then ultimately scrapped an article that was saying that we should fire him several years ago. This was the Ask Fran game in Allen Fieldhouse. I think that was the game where Barry Brown threw up a last second shot that wasn't a very good final play. I think that's the same game. And then he was upset about a call and he said, "Ask Fran," and then like stormed out of the press conference. And I was like, that is embarrassing. And so I've been critical of Bruce, but on the whole, he's the most accomplished coach we've had since Jack Hartman, who retired in 1986. And so you got to give the guy credit for that. And I think that it was probably time for the program and the coach to part ways. But I also think that it's sad. I mean, I feel bad for the guy, and I hope that whatever he winds up doing next, he's super successful and happy doing.
Yeah, which, like we said, right now it seems like his focus is going to be just being there for his family, which all the respect in the world to him for doing that. And everyone knows he's earned it in that regard.
Yeah.
In regards to my thoughts, at least, I am both happy that he's gone and unhappy that he's gone, because when it comes to coaching on the courts, he never impressed me. But when it comes to off the field, he's one of those very few coaches in college football, or not college football, in college sports in general, that I was thinking of. Kleiman would be another one that I would genuinely want to sit down and have a conversation with, independent of whatever they coached. I think Bruce Weber has been nothing short of an amazing person while he's been at K-State. And he's been the epitome of everything K-State espouses when it comes to the idea of it being a family. But a tough part about family is sometimes you have to make difficult decisions. And Bruce made that decision that the on-the-court product was suffering, or that it wasn't going anywhere with him, and decided that it was time. And I'll miss him. I will miss his press conferences, even if sometimes I'm laughing at his expense. I'll miss it. And, I just hope that whatever he does to the best of his ability.
Yeah, I'd say that I fall pretty cleanly within the boundaries that Nathan set up. I'd say I have a very nuanced opinion of Bruce, because his Bruce's hiring, that's kind of the first coaching hire that I was old enough to really be aware of. Like, when I was younger, like, Jim Older was the coach, and then Bob Huggins was, and then Frank Martin was, and they just kind of were the coaches and just kind of materialized on the basketball court and then left when the game was over. But Bruce was like the first coach where I was really able to kind of hear the rumors that he might be the coach. I didn't really know what that meant because I was 13, but he ended up being hired. And I just remember an onslaught of criticism, people saying, "Oh, we should give him a chance." And then a whole lot of people saying this is the worst decision that's ever been made. John Curry hates K-State. Bruce Weber sucks, whatever it may be. And it was very strange for me, because I was like, this guy's not coached a single game before. I was like, let's give him a shot. Then he won a Big 12 title that year, went to the NCAA tournament the next year, then had some rough seasons, and then kind of came back, had that nice run there with Dean Barry, Cam in the Elite Eight and Big 12 title. I still don't think we saw the pinnacle of what those teams could achieve with Dean being hurt in the postseason. But I definitely fall in a nuanced view of Bruce, because even with like a lot of that good, growing up with some of those great moments, like the Kentucky win in the Sweet 16 is one of my favorite K-State memories. And there was a lot of bad in there as well. And that was just Bruce Weber's tenure. There was give and take with everything. And I've come to peace with that, I guess. I am very appreciative of the Big 12 titles, the Elite Eight run, and the fun players that we got to see. I like guys like Wes Iwundu, Barry Brown, DJ Johnson, Thomas Gibson were two of my favorites when I was younger. And I don't know, just I am sad to see him go, but I also am very aware that it is time, maybe even past time, for him to be gone. I think we're all pretty much in agreement that, like, we can respect what he did and not, grave dance on this man for resigning and having kind of a rough end to his career.
Yeah. Which leads to the next question of what are your thoughts on the fan reaction to, and I'm talking both sides of it, which exactly what I mean by both sides. What's your response to that?
I mean, I have never disliked K-State fans as a group more than the last probably 18 hours. I've been really disappointed. Everything from the bye-bye Bruce sign at the game to the fans' reaction, and even certain media members' reaction to some of the stuff that Bruce said in his press conference. And it's tough, because I think that you kind of mentioned, Connor, a little bit earlier about the fans like having a bad reaction to Bruce when he got hired. And I think that a lot of fans had the same reaction to Kleiman. And I think that both of those coaches could win multiple Big 12 titles. I mean, obviously Bruce did, and it still didn't win over the fan base. And I think that the same thing could happen to Kleiman. I think that a lot of folks, for some reason, decided they didn't like Bruce the day he was hired, because he wasn't Frank Martin and he wasn't Doug Gottlieb. And they were never going to give him a shot. And that's really sad. And I think that it really came out really bad, especially on Twitter and Reddit. Over the last,
the hellscape that is Reddit.
Yeah, I mean, I love Reddit, and usually the sports fans on Reddit are pretty chill, but the Bruce Weber resigns thread was a tough read, because there were a lot of folks grave dancing, a lot of KU fans taking their shots, which, like, I mean, I'd be taking my shots too, but
fair, and like being fair. Yeah, you and I would both do the same. But it's just not fun when you're the one receiving.
Yeah, it's like, I've made fun of Bruce on Reddit and on Twitter before, but it's kind of like your little brother. It's like, we can make fun of him, and we can make fun of the Pete the Cat and the Bamboo and him with the Gucci Mane book. Like, we can make fun of all of that, but if somebody else makes fun of it, like, we're throwing.
That's not okay.
The Gucci Mane book was cool. Nice.
that whole photo shoot completely redeemed any of the bad years of Bruce basketball. The eating cereal out of the Big 12 championship trophy.
Yeah, that's
goated.
Was that Austin Trice at Reptile World, as I recall?
I think it was Austin Trice. Yeah. Oh, that's another thought I have on Bruce. It's just like, it feels like we never really had a good big man, at least since DJ. And that was a major issue with the team every year. You had Dean, who was a stretch four, but other than that, you didn't have a huge big man that was like good.
Yeah. I'd say honestly the closest.
Somebody that they didn't have somebody that you could just feed, or you could count on to rebound really well, or you could count on to stop a David McCormick type. They just never really had that.
Yeah, closest they ever got really was probably McCall Mayween. Like looking back
In the Sprint Center, baby.
Yeah, he will always have that 30-point game against KU.
So I'm going to admit that coming into doing the collegiate stuff, I didn't know a lot about basketball. Like I'm definitely kind of a football first person. McCall Mayween was the first time I ever noticed a big using his body to create space for a driving guard. And I thought that was revolutionary, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. It was pointed out to me that that was not a revolutionary discovery, but I saw him like screening off the big so that I don't remember who the guard was could get down the lane, and I was like, that's so cool. And then
Yeah. You know what? I had a similar revelation because I'm a football guy first, and I saw McCall Mayween do that in a game. I did it in an intramural game one time to create space for like one of my friends who was driving, and I did it like 5 times in the game. The guy I was doing it to was just, he nearly got teed up for complaining for a moving screen. I'm like, dude, I am just boxing you out.
Just boxing you out. I don't know what you're talking about.
Go around me.
Yeah.
If this bothers you.
Yeah, the fan reaction has been, obviously you have the more reasonable people, but every single time that something like this happens, I have to go back and look at the tweet that I made like a month and a half ago, just saying, I see we've reached the point of the season where the worst enemy of emaw Twitter is also emaw Twitter. And that's just happening. I feel like it reached apocalyptic Chernobyl meltdown levels within the past like 24 hours.
Yeah.
And so much so that it was leaking into the real world, and we had to just send in a quarantine team, which ironically, just wouldn't have done anything. But yeah, the fan reaction, I agree with you in that I've never disliked the K-State fan base as a collective more than I have in the last 18 hours. And I'm not sure it's been close, Connor.
Yeah, I think I'd probably fall in the same vein, mainly because it's just very frustrating to see like just the constant infighting during basketball season, because it's been getting worse every single year for the last several years. Even when we were playing well, when we were winning the Big 12 title, there were still arguments about if Bruce should be the coach or not. I mean, we literally like cut down the Nets against OU, and people were like, I don't know,
it might be trash.
So you know what? You're allowed to enjoy yourself. Like you can enjoy the team winning even if you don't like the coach. like there were like times that Frank Martin got on my nerves when I was a kid. I was like, he kind of seems kind of mean sometimes. Like 8-year-old Connor was a little concerned about how nice he was to the players. But you know what? The Cats were winning, and that made me even happier than anything he could have done. So, but the fan reaction has been, I've been really sad with how it's been. There's been, I get the point that there might be fan bases that are worse, and that there's a lot of fan bases that act the way that we are. But just because other fan bases, the OUs, the Texases, the Miamis of the world are going to act up on Twitter, that doesn't mean that we should do it. Like maybe we should hold ourselves to a higher standard than the t-shirt fan base, blue bloods that don't really have standards for themselves. It's okay to be happy that we're moving on while also not
grave dancing.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's grave dancing. But
we were kind of talking about that in we have a collegiate sports group chat. We were kind of talking about that last night and today, that like where K-State's athletics department is in comparison to its resources is an absolute dub. Like we are, I'm pretty sure, the smallest public P5 by enrollment. We have a pretty small athletic budget when it's all said and done. And we are top half of the Big 12 in football consistently, usually good enough at basketball to be on the bubble. Women's basketball has been up and down. Baseball is finally turning a corner. And the rest of the volleyball has been pretty good, pretty consistently for as long as Susie Fritz has been around. And the rest of the non-revenue sports are either good or not embarrassing. Like in my college career, we have a pair of track Big 12 titles. And it's like, that's an absolute dub compared to kind of what we have to work with. Because T. Boone Pickens is not walking through that door and dropping $12 billion on our athletics budget.
Right.
That'll be us whenever we
rule
the world.
Yeah, once our ad rev finally hits our bank account, it's over.
What you guys
Yeah, we're thinking about setting up a bake sale to fund Brad Underwood's buyout. So
is it Raycon this week?
Is it Raycon?
Yeah.
When the Raycon check hits,
Yeah.
you guys the Underwood buyout.
I mean, you had the idea of selling Girl Scout cookies.
Yeah, dude, the Go Emo guys should be selling Girl Scout cookies. Let's get John Curry to write a memoir. Get that money.
Yeah. We can get Bill to write another book and just give all the proceeds to the AD. Either that or just give up his like whatever 250K he's making a year.
Yeah. So
he's earned that 250K a year.
Yeah. So
I give that man whatever he wants.
Yeah, he's earned it. With the fact that Bruce is gone out of the way, we'll have two questions here. If you could pick anyone to be the next head coach of Kansas State men's basketball, who would it be? We're going to be doing both unrealistic and realistic. Which one do you want to do first?
Let's do unrealistic. Let's get the fun one out of the way.
Okay. Who you hiring? AD Enserro?
Oh, wait, I can have anyone I want?
Anyone.
Yeah.
Anyone.
I want Scott Drew.
Want Scott Drew? Yeah.
I want Scott Drew.
I agree with you.
Give me, yeah. I mean, I like the guy as a coach and I like the guy as a person. I think he does it the right way. You know, you're not going to have the FBI breathing down your neck. So yeah, give me Scott Drew.
Scott Drew is hard to beat and an unrealistic because he's pretty much just like the ultimate version of Bruce Weber and the way that he like runs his program and stuff like that.
Yeah. And that's what I want.
Yeah. Like he's like pretty much the perfect K-State coach in that regard. But obviously like he's not leaving his situation anytime soon.
No.
But that's why this is unrealistic. I would love to have Scott Drew. He'd be awesome.
Yeah. Now let's talk more realistically here. There have been a couple of names who have popped up, and of course, we all know the names. Underwood, the current Illinois head coach, then McMahon, who's Murray State.
Yep.
The Baylor assistant,
Drum Tang,
and then who's the North Texas head coach?
That's Grant McCasland.
Those are all realistic names that have, in air quotes, that have popped up. So unless you're going to come out with a wild card answer, who are you hiring realistically?
All right, I'll give you one of those names, and then I'll give you a wild card name.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right, so I want McCasland from North Texas. I'm watching their game right now, almost halftime. They're up 35-15 on Rice. So I was my cousin is a big Arkansas fan, and he texted me this morning when he heard the Bruce news, and he was like, "Who are you gonna get?" And I was like, "Well, everybody's kind of talking about this North Texas coach," and he was like, "Oh, McCasland. Apparently, Musselman, the coach over at Arkansas, is one of his mentors." And then so if his teams play at all like Arkansas plays, just the way that how hard they play on both ends of the court, the kind of analytics driven next century basketball, I want every bit of that. And I want that so bad. He's a former Scott Drew assistant and a Scott Drew player. I want every ounce of that. Give me that man.
Yeah.
A kind of off the wall name is the Missouri State head coach. I think his last name is Ford. Could be fun. I don't know.
Could be fun.
And then Ben Jacobson at UNI, I think is a realistic one, just given who Gene Taylor is and kind of his history and who he's familiar and comfortable with. I could see the UNI coach Ben Jacobson being getting the call.
Well,
You can go first with the realistic.
realistic. The way things are developing, Underwood is less unrealistic than he was 24 hours ago. Even, I still don't know if I'd quite qualify him as realistic, but he's really getting there. But I am, though, in complete agreement with the strategy that you at the very least call Brad, make him say no, if nothing else, but have your money in order before you do it. And if he says no, then you go immediately to Grant McCaslin and just absolutely beg because I don't know a ton about him other than he has unbelievably efficient teams at North Texas offensively. And you are right. They're very analytics driven at North Texas. They're a heavy analytics team down there. They're like 25-4 or something like that this year. Everywhere McCaslin goes, they get better pretty consistently. Like I think it was Arkansas Little Rock. He went in, they were like 12-20 the year before. Then he gets there and they go like 21-11 or something. And then he leaves the next year and they go back to like well below 500 the following season. There's a pretty clear path of success where McCaslin goes. And he's also a younger guy. Brad Underwood is 58 right now. He'd be 59 like halfway during next season. McCaslin, I believe, is in his mid 40s right now. So still a very young guy. Not that Brad Underwood's not energetic. He has a lot of energy, but McCaslin is still a younger guy. So if you want a guy to buckle down for the long haul, Grant McCaslin in North Texas is a great option. I also like Nico Medved at Colorado State. Kind of similar in that he's a modern ball coach, and Colorado State has been getting better very consistently since he got there. He inherited a pretty difficult situation there, but I do like him. Off the wall name that I've heard tossed around a little bit is Chris Mack. I think he just got fired at Louisville or whatever. like he Yeah, I don't want him, but I just because I honestly I don't have like a great sleeper wild card name right now. I'm just waiting for like things to surface at this point. But I just thought it was funny that his name was getting thrown around because I was like, there's a near 0% chance that Gene Taylor would hire him. I think he'd just as soon leave the position vacant than hire Chris Mack.
He put Shane Southwell. He'd do it Jacob Poland once and have Shane Southwell step up before.
Yeah, he probably would. What'd you say, Nathan?
He'd let Jeff Mittie coach both teams before he would hire.
I'd be morbidly curious to see what that would look like.
Recruiting would get better.
Jack Hartman coached both teams.
He did.
Not back time. But when the women's basketball coach resigned, after he had retired, the women's basketball coach got fired / resigned because of NCAA violations, and he stepped up and coached the last 7 games of the season.
Which is awesome.
They went 3-4.
3-4, but he did it.
All things considered, that's about as good as you can expect given this situation. Hey, good on him though. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Maybe they can coax Lon Kruger out of retirement. Hey, he was just in Manhattan. That's surely not a coincidence.
May have not left yet.
Lon Kruger is a assistant on his son's team, I think, at UNLV now. But yeah, he was just in Manhattan. I was talking to Steve Smethers. For those of you who aren't JMC students, he's an institution in JMC, and he is retiring, but he is like the interim dean of the program right now, I think. He's also my major professor for my master's, so he's coaching me through my thesis. And so I was hanging out with him on our normal Tuesday morning meetings, and he goes, "Man, you would have loved kites. All the old guys that like from the 80s basketball teams were back, and it was awesome." Because he goes down to kites like every Friday night, basically.
As I say, I saw Smithers one time back when like he hurt his foot. Remember he like fell down some stairs and like broke his ankle or something.
Yep.
He was down at Kites watching K-State versus Oklahoma State. I remember, and he was just having a grand old time.
He told us our freshman year that he had a booth at a stool at the bar at Kites. That side of the bar is closed now, but he would always go and sit there for away games. And then he wandered through our tailgate, my parents' tailgate before a football game one time, because we were tailgating between his house and the football stadium. So he wandered through. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. As for who I would want as the new head coach, honestly, my top name is still Underwood, just because I've seen him directly have success as a head coach at the Power Five level. And that's really where it begins and ends with me. Then again, I might be stupid when it comes to college basketball. In fact, I am verifiably stupid when it comes to college basketball. So maybe my opinions take it with a grain of salt, but Underwood would be my first choice, followed by McMahon, followed by I keep wanting to call him McCaskill, but that's a senator from Missouri.
That's a McCaslin.
McCaslin, not Claire McCaskill. It's McCaslin.
Hey,
Then followed by the Baylor assistant.
another person Gene would rather have than Chris Mack.
That's true. We're just adding to this long list of people to hire and not name Chris Mack.
But yeah, so that pretty much ends the talk about the men's basketball coaching. Now let's shift into if the Cats were still in it, we'd be talking about the men's tournament, but I don't want to talk about what's left. So executive decision made. We're moving on to the women's Catsketball team, and a team that, as to this point, has both been the best and the worst team that has currently been playing this winter season. And it really all depends on where they're playing. They're playing in Kansas City for the tournament at Municipal Auditorium. So maybe the home juices get flowing there. But they play Texas on Friday at 7:30. And how do you this is a team that we lost to both times we played them. Granted, at home, it was considerably closer. And their strategy is, wait a minute, we have like 3 people who actually match up with Ioka Lee and can do 3/4 of what we need them to do. But since we have 3 of them, we can just throw bodies at her until they foul out, which is a legit strategy.
Yeah.
But, how do you feel about this matchup going into their matchup in Kansas City?
Well, I think that Texas, I know they finished 3rd in the Big 12. I think that they are the team that is best built for a deep tournament run in the league. And here's why. They don't rely on streaky shooters or being able to overpower opponents, right? That's Baylor, that's Iowa State and Baylor respectively. Like Iowa State is going to outshoot you and Baylor is going to overpower you with 8 girls that are bigger than your biggest girl. Texas, it's like watching those really good Bob Huggins teams where their thing is, we're going to hold you below 50 points and we're going to score 55 every game. They have one of, if not the best defenses in the league, which is, sorry, I'm pulling up stats, which is really kind of saying something. They have the best defense in the Big 12. They have one of the best defenses in the country. And so they're going to shut you down. And so it's terrifying. And that's why I think that they could win the Big 12 tournament. But I also think that they will go the furthest in the NCAA tournament. So I don't give the Midi Cats a huge likelihood of victory tomorrow night.
So with that dose of optimism out of the way, let's get some actual optimism. If we are to beat Texas, say tomorrow we wake up and we feel dangerous, what happens that allows us to beat Texas in Kansas City?
Someone besides Ioka Lee gets going, I think. I'm looking at the stats right now, and that loss at Texas, that 66-48 loss at Texas, Yoki still had 20 points. When we played them in Kansas City, or we played them in Manhattan, lost 62-51. Sundell led the team with 16 points. I think you need those types of nights from both players. And then I think you need one other player in double figures. Because Ace, you were kind of right in that they're going to double and triple team Lee. and they're going to press up and down the court for 40 minutes. And so what you need to do is you need somebody who's hitting shots to take some of that pressure off. The worst games that K-State has had this year have been games where teams have been able to pack the lane. And so when a team like Texas Tech, for example, in Lubbock, has a girl behind Lee, a girl in front of Lee, and good ball pressure, it's really dangerous. It's really hard for K-State to score. And that's what Texas is going to try to do. And then they're going to be physical with Lee when she tries to score, or when she does get the ball. So what they're going to need is shooting to kind of draw that I guess defender that's in deny away from Lee and out of the paint, draw that extra defender away. And then it'd be really helpful if they got a quick whistle. Because I think that if Lee is able to turn around and take shots relatively unobstructed and get to the line, they got a really good shot. And so I think that they need a better than average performance from Lee, and somewhere in the 15 range from Sundell or Glenn, and then somebody else to put in around 10. And then they need to not get out rebounded by, I think they were out rebounded by like 21 in Manhattan by Texas. And I know Texas got up 21 more shots than K-State did. That can't happen. That's not a recipe for success, no matter who you're playing.
Yeah. So if you could, I know you mentioned it, that it's going to be Yoki and Sundell would be the two names to expect. Is there a third that comes to your mind that you think has a chance to maybe step in and find a spark to where there'll be a more consistent shooter, maybe just getting that 10 points that would put us over the edge?
I really liked what I saw from Laura Mackey a couple of games ago. I'm not expecting her to, I think Briley or Jalen Glenn are more likely to chip in at those points, but I would be remiss if I didn't say that Laura Mackey had an excellent game when she was the player that they decided not to guard. So it was the girl that was supposed to be guarding her was the second girl on Lee, and Mackey was draining mid-range shots. She hit a big three in that game, and she was getting to the basket. So somebody like her or Ebert, again, getting to the basket, maybe making a couple of threes, would go a long way towards making it the type of game where they have a chance to win at the end.
Yeah. Do you have a pick for who that third person is going to be, Connor?
I honestly was going to say Mackey. I mainly like her as that option just because Texas, the second player they're going to be bringing to guard Lee's probably also going to be a post, probably the 4. And that would ideally free up Laura Mackey or Emily Everett. So I think they are the obvious choice there, but it just relies on either of them or both of them having solid nights. I mean, you could get like Laura Mackey had like 17 against OU, I think. Everett has had solid games this year. If you could get the 15-point performance from one of them, or if you could get 8 out of both of them, that would be a lot easier sell. I think 8 from Mackey, 8 from Everett. So
yeah,
I'm going with the difference.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ace.
I'm going with a different split of 8, and I'm going to go with the Glenn twins. I think the Glenn twins will end up splitting 8 if we win this game, which hopefully.
I could see it. And the Connor and I were talking about the same game. It was the Oklahoma game where Laura Mackey played 28 minutes and had 17 points. They
Is she the leading scorer?
I think it was Sundell that game. She had like 25.
Sundell had 24 on 9 of 16 shooting. She drilled 5 of 9 3-pointers. But Laura,
I think she might be good.
Yeah, Laura had that big 3 at the end of the game to tie it, and then Robertson just went down, and you can't give her an inch, and she was able to come off of 2 screens and get enough room. And she's an inhumanly good shooter.
Yeah, that was the same day as the Iowa State game, I believe.
Yeah, it was.
We
were at Kites.
Oh, Tanner's. Yeah, they had the women's game on like one teeny tiny screen like off to the side of the bar. I think we were the only people out of like the 100 people that were there that were watching it.
There's like
there's
a woman at the bar who was
Yeah.
like passively interested.
Yeah, there was like no reaction save for me and Ace being like, like when the shot went at the end. That was another painful road loss, which
Yeah. There's been a lot of those kinds of games.
Yeah, which is why you have to hope that neutral site equates to home for the Midi Cats now, especially that's in Kansas City. But speaking of locations of where they're going to be playing, regardless of what happens tomorrow at 7:30 against Texas, barring some NCAA violation, the Midi Cats are going to be in the NCAA tournament. So what do you think will, with or without a win with against Texas, what do you think their likely seed is and where do you think they're going to be playing?
So I think a loss to Texas pretty much locks them into the 8-9 line. And the last that I saw, that meant, what did Cream have them? I know it was the Spokane region, which is definitely less fun for K-State fans because there is a Wichita region. But I think a win over Texas potentially jumps them up to a 7 seed, which is better, more likely for a deep run than an 8-9. An 8-9 is basically a death sentence in the women's tournament just because of the lack of parity and how good the top 6 or 7 teams in the country are and how much better they are than even teams 20 through 25 are. But I think that they're looking at a win against Texas could be enough to bump them up a seed line, I think. And I also think that the Charlie Cream, which is really the only women's bracketologist from like a big brand. He's the ESPN bracketologist. I think that he is a little low on the Cats compared to where they have been with Net and their kind of resume. So I could see the Cats sliding onto a 7 line.
that would be huge.
Yeah,
if they can end up in a 7, because an 8 or 9, like you said, I mean, like they're screwed. If they make it past the 8-9, they're going to face a buzzsaw team.
You're going to face a South Carolina, a UConn, a North Carolina State.
Yeah,
you're going to die.
So hopefully they slide up to that 7. That might buy them a little extra time out in the tournament. Especially, hopefully, they can get into the Wichita Regional.
Yeah.
So the really good news about that whole thing is that since they've played NC State and South Carolina already, if those 2 teams are 1 seeds, it's unlikely that they end up on the 8-9 line in either of their regions. Because I think they would avoid having a rematch in the second round.
Well, that's good.
That is very beneficial. That's some intelligent scheduling.
I think that's how the NCAA does their seeding.
Well, let's hope.
I really hope so, because I don't want to face South Carolina or NC State again. So
I don't like that, honestly. So, say for both scenarios, what do you think? Do you think this team has the legs under them to make a tournament run? Not saying win it all, not even saying Final Four, Elite Eight. Do you think they could make a decent run in the tournament?
I think so. I think as long as they avoid the 8-9 line, I think that they'll be playing teams that haven't seen Lee yet. Right? It's not like they're playing Oklahoma for a 4th time, and Oklahoma knows exactly what to do to guard her. Or Kansas, the second time they played Kansas knew exactly what to do to guard her and disrupt her. And so I think that it's possible that if they get shooting and they can alleviate a little bit of pressure on Lee, I could see them in a Sweet 16 from the 7 line, not from the 8-9 line. Potentially even from the 10 line, 10-7. I could see that. But again, there's just so little parity in women's basketball that it's hard to predict beyond anything else besides chalk.
Yeah. That's pretty much all we have. Do you have anything else you want to add? Just you can say anything about anything that you want. Just the floor is yours. Shout yourself out. Let people know where to know. Let people know where to follow you on Twitter.
All right, yeah, let's start with that. So you all can follow me on Twitter at this is my second Twitter account because my first Twitter account got hacked and I didn't have access to the email address. But it's at ENSERRO NATHAN. It's my last name and then my first name. And I've got 220 followers right now, and I'd like to see that number jump. So, Alleycat Nation, let's do this.
Alleycat Nation. I think everyone that listens to us probably follows you already.
That's fine.
I'll make 100 alts for you.
Tell your friends. Tell your mom. Tell your mom to follow me. She can follow along with the cats. I tweet friendly things. I don't curse on Twitter. Your mom will like following me. And then the other thing is I really, really have loved covering the women's basketball team over the last 5 years. And I told Coach Mitty this after the last home game because I wasn't sure if I'd get to see them in Kansas City. I'm planning on being in Kansas City tomorrow night. But I wanted to just make sure that I shook his hand and thanked him for everything over the years. And I wanted to put it out publicly that I think that he's a great person and a great representative of the university. And we're really lucky to have him, and prayers for his wife. If anybody listening out there isn't aware, she has cancer. I believe, cancer. So just prayers for his wife and his family. And I know that it's taken a toll on him. You could tell after the Play for K game.
That was a very emotional game. I went to it, and there was a moment where Shauna was on the jumbotron for a second. There was this collective moment of everyone stood up, and it sounds really cheesy. It's like one of those really bad stories where, and then everyone clapped, but no. Actually, everyone got up and clapped, and you could kind of tell how much that meant to her. And if you look down on the floor, I'm not sure if Jeff knew what was going on. I say Jeff just so I can differentiate between the two of them. I'm not sure if he knew what was going on, but if he did, I'm sure that he appreciated knowing that everyone was behind him. And I know that controversial take, cancer sucks. So yeah, cancer's awful. So just show all the support that you can to the Mitty family because they're going to need it.
Yep. Tweet nice things at them.
Yeah.
And tweet nice things at Bruce also.
Please tweet anything nice.
Don't tweet anything.
I'm no longer asking. Tweet nice things at Bruce.
and don't tweet anything at recruits
ever.
Yes. Like their stuff, and that's
not even welcome to the family. Not even.
Oops.
Don't do that.
Oops.
Just remember that you're an adult person tweeting at a 17-year-old. Anytime you want to tweet at players, just remember they're 17, 18, 19 years old. And
we are in that weird wiggle room where we can do it because we are respectively 21 and 22.
Yeah.
We're in that weird middle ground where we can get away with it. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you in about 5 seconds on the episode so we can get into the weekly recap. But thank you so much for coming on, Nathan. And we hope to probably see you again in a future episode, but certainly in real life. So be back soon.
Thank you, guys.
And we're back. Well, we just got back from having our second guest of all time. Hopefully we'll hit we're not going to hit our goal of 10. That's not going to happen. No. We can amend that goal to be 5, and I'm pretty sure we'll easily get it.
Yes.
But that's neither here nor there. Welcome to the weekly recap segment of it. And honestly, we're only going to be recapping men's and women's Catsketball awards and just briefly baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, we don't really have much to say because we covered the result of the men's tournament in the interview with Nathan. But this episode's probably running long enough, so let's just get right into it. Let's start with the men's Catsketball awards. And for the men, Nigel Pack was first team All Big 12 as well as the most improved Big 12 player, which there was whoever was announcing or commentating the tournament game yesterday, was being stupid. It's like, you can't take it from Christian Brown because KU wins more. It's like, well, you haven't won anything plus ratio plus I hate you.
I remember seeing online that the guy's name was Chris Spatola.
Yeah, Chris Spatola.
Yeah. I was not able to watch most of the game. At least that was sound. And I guess I'm glad that I wasn't able to hear most of what was going on because it sounds
slander. It was slander against Nigel Pack. Yeah, he ended up getting rightfully first team All Big 12 after we thought that he was going to get robbed exactly because we thought we didn't win enough.
Yeah. But he made it.
Yeah, he made it. Good for Nigel.
Yeah, first team All Big 12 and most improved. And I think that there was an argument for other players to be most improved, but Nigel went from being good last year to great this year. I think that's the big difference. And then I think he earned his first team spot. Even if the team didn't perform the best, it's first team All Big 12, meaning it's the guys that you want on your team the most.
And I would take him over Brown.
Yeah, I really like Pack's versatility, and if anything, KU being as successful as they are, I think a lot of that's by virtue of how deep they are as a team. K-State's not a deep team.
No.
So Pack doing what he's able to do, almost in spite at times, but Pack. I don't like the argument of Pack not deserving first team because of the alleged lack of team success. So, but great honor for Nigel, and I'm sure he's going to start racking up the awards here pretty soon for AP and whatnot. But
yeah.
Good for Nigel.
Yeah. Marquise Noel was all Big 12 defensive team as well as an honorable mention All Big 12. Then Mark Smith was third team All Big 12 as well as the all newcomer of the year. So congratulations to both Marks, both Marquise and Mark.
Yep. Yeah, they have both earned their places as well. Marquise was somebody that I was a little worried would not end up on any of the teams, but he gets honorable mention, which I think is probably about where he belongs. And then also the all defensive team. He was excellent this year defensively. I think
still lead in steals.
He either was first or second in the league in steals, and I think it's the same story for assists.
Yeah.
He just had a really great season in that regard, and it was just his inconsistency that holds him back from being a third teamer or second teamer. And then the all Big 12 defensive team. That's again something I was a little worried he wouldn't get because of his size.
Yeah.
But I mean, he had
look at him.
Yeah, he had 6 steals against TCU at home, I believe. Didn't help in the end, but
yeah, well,
he definitely earned his spot, being a pest on the ball, and being great at getting steals and just generally being a nuisance on the defensive end. And Mark, 13 All Big 12 is about where he belongs, all newcomer team. Unfortunate that we can only have him for 1 year. And Isaiah Brockington deserves the newcomer of the year from Iowa State, but Mark getting on the all newcomer team, still I think that's what he deserves. And 13 All Big 12, nothing to sniff at.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the men's awards going down, but here we have the women's awards, and there are 3 people in particular who got awards. 2 of them, even though they got awarded, I still feel like got robbed. Let's go over, order of importance here. So we're going to go off of, not importance, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The first one was Briley Glenn, who was on the all-freshman team, one of the Glenn twins. Followed, really, that's all you can say there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's deserved.
Yeah. I agree. I was a little surprised that
I was honestly surprised.
I figured that for all freshmen they would include either neither of the twins or both of the twins. So I was surprised only one.
Split it and gave Briley the... Wonder if that's going to be a
point of contention
between the twins. I'd wonder if that'll get Put right up there with who was born first.
That's got to be bulletin board material for Jalen.
She has it just pushed up on her door. They probably bunked together.
Probably.
Anyway, so congrats to Briley. Next up is Serena Sundell, who let's go over what she did get before we go over what she didn't. She was all Big 12 honorable mention, as well as being on the all freshman team, as well as being the only freshman to win Freshman of the Week 5 times. So, you think with all of those in mind, you'd think that she would be the Big 12 Freshman of the Year. You would be wrong.
Yeah, it was Rory Harmon of Texas, and almost the only reason that is the case is because Texas had a very good season.
Yeah.
And I think that's silly. Because
we had a decent season. We had a good season, but
Yeah, but as Serena deserved Freshman of the Year, I think it's a travesty that she didn't get it. And because, I mean, she led freshmen in, I believe, scoring, and there was multiple other categories. I remember I saw somebody tweet it. I don't want to, say too many while being wrong, but I do know that she led in scoring. And there was at least 3 or 4 other major statistical categories that Serena Sundell led all conference freshmen in. So
I know one of them was assists.
Yeah, one of them was assists, which makes sense. She's a point guard.
Yeah.
And Sundell definitely got robbed here. And that's not even saying Rory Harmon's a bad player. Rory Harmon's a good player on a good team. But I think that winning Freshman of the Week 5 times, being the only person to do that in the entire league, I think that speaks for itself. I mean, honestly, they should just automatically give it to whoever has the most Freshman of the Week awards.
Yeah,
you would think that would translate. Maybe I'm missing something there.
Maybe we're missing the point,
Maybe so. But, maybe Chris Spatola voted on this. And because Texas won more, that he had to just give the award to the team with that won more, I guess.
Either that or we can keep rolling with the theory that the people who vote don't actually watch the games.
Well, we already knew that. So.
Yeah. Then next up is the big one, because it is the big on our team. That is Ayoka Lee, or Yoki. She's won multiple All-American honors from both Sports Illustrated and The Athletic. I imagine whenever AP releases, they'll probably put her on there.
I would be shocked if she wasn't an All-American, pretty much consensus.
Yeah.
Because, she's first team Sports Illustrated and The Athletic All-American. I think it's almost a given she'll be an AP All-American, but we'll see.
Now, she was also All Big 12 and All Big 12 defensive team, but she was robbed of Player of the Year. Not only on the Big 12, but of National Player of the Year.
I don't know if they've named National. Have they named National Player of the Year yet?
I don't think they have.
Okay.
Well, maybe that would be a really funny. That'd be another Deuce Vaughn situation. Consensus All-American, not as bad, but
yeah.
But her not being Big 12 Player of the Year after setting a record, that's a tragedy.
Yeah, and I get that the whole thing is that she may have struggled a bit down the stretch, but it was truly just hack-a-shack, but without the calls, pretty much.
Yeah.
Which, it was just kind of pitiful. I was just watching teams just literally throw players at Ayoka Lee in the hopes that officials wouldn't call it more often than they wouldn't, and just basically doing the math and saying a surefire 2 points would be worse than sending her to the line, even if she shoots 75-80%. So
Yeah.
I feel like she at the very least should have had Conference Player of the Year for that. I get giving it to, I think it was Nalissa Smith ended up winning it of Baylor, but you would think that setting the all-time record for points in a game would put somebody above.
And averaging a double-double.
Yeah, you would think that would do it, but apparently not. Leading the conference in blocks, that is...
Yeah, what do we know?
That's irrelevant, I suppose.
What do we know?
Yeah. Ayoka Lee definitely deserved Player of the Year in my eyes. Not to say that, I think it was Nalissa Smith that won it. Still a deserving player and a really great player, but I just think that that's a little disrespectful to Ayoka Lee to not give her a Player of the Year. But you know what? Like you said, what do I know? I might be stupid.
Yeah. They also might be stupid.
They also might be. I like to believe they are, and I'm right. But
Always.
of course.
Anyway, that pretty much wraps up award season. Like I said, we covered everything else that's happened in
Yeah.
the last segment. But now let's cover baseball. And we're going to cover this again very shortly. We're literally just going to be covering the scores of the Loyola Marymount as well as the winning and losing pitchers. Loyola Marymount was a series that we had in California. We also got trapped there for a day, which delayed the Nebraska game because of the weather. But for the first game, we ended up blanking them. We went 11-0, and the winning pitcher was Blake Adams. The next game was that Saturday. We won 10-5. The winning pitcher was Connor McCullough. And we couldn't get the sweep, unfortunately. We lost the last game 7-14 with Blake Corsentino taking the loss. That was our first series win of the year, which we needed.
Yeah. And winning those first two games and securing that dub. It was unfortunate that we weren't able to close out the last game. The last game was kind of a blowout as well for Loyola Marymount. But regardless, you still take the series, and I think this team really needed to just see a series win just to help build their confidence. But, they finally got to come back home and finally play a home game.
Yeah.
Against Nebraska.
And against Nebraska, a game that we kind of fully expected to get waxed.
Yes.
But, turns out, we ended up winning this game by a score of 6-4 off the back of two pretty solid pitching performances from Griffin Hassel, but most importantly, Colin Rothermel, the true freshman. Before we go into the pitching performances, we can go down the line here. Dominic Johnson ended up going 2 for 3 with 2 walks. Cash Rugeley was designated hitting.
Didn't do a lot of hitting.
Didn't do a lot of hitting. Didn't have a great day. Justin Mitchell went 1 for 2 before being pitch hit and then defensively subbed for. Dylan Phillips went 1 for 4 with 1 RBI and a strikeout. Nick Goodwin hit an absolute missile to left field. That was his one hit of the day. He also struck out twice and left 4 on base. So although he hit that nuclear missile to left field, he still could have done a bit more, but we ended up winning, so it didn't matter. Josh Nikoloff went 1 for 4, but generated 2 runs on a strikeout. Cole Johnson went 1 for 3 with 1 walk and a strikeout. Orlando Salinas had 1 hit, 1 RBI. I believe one of those was scored a fielder's choice because he was bunting.
Yeah.
And then Kalen Culpepper went 0 for 3 with a run, an RBI, and a sac fly. So I do want to talk about one thing in particular where we had 4 people in a row bunt, and it worked every time because Nebraska's defense was horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, their defense was atrocious. I wasn't able to stay for the full game. I left, I think, exactly halfway through.
They subbed out the shortstop as soon as you left.
As they should have, because I'm sitting here trying to remember how many errors he had. I don't know if they'll...
He had 2, but it really should have been 3. 1 wasn't scored in error.
Yeah, he had 2, and like you said, another one should have been listed. But it was very tough sledding for the shortstop for Nebraska. Only ended up having 1 at bat with the strikeout and a walk, but it was really it was one big inning for this team. It was the 4th inning, and they added another run in the 5th. But I mean, the 5th inning, they got that was the home run, and then just bunt. Then they fumble a throw at third, mess up a ground out at a short, and a few fielder's choices, send a guy home, and then a sac fly in the 5th. We'll put the 6th run up there, and that was enough. And that's not to say that the bats weren't working. They still had 8 hits.
Yeah.
Even though Nebraska had 3 errors, this game ended up about how it should have. Nebraska gets 6 hits, 4 runs. Cats get 8 hits, 6 runs, even with the 3 errors from Nebraska. That's about where that would probably end up in a simulation, where you try to find a perfectly average outcome.
Yeah.
Even if you take out the errors, K-State probably should win this game, at least just looking at the plain stats of it. But it was also just a pretty solid performance. There were some nice plays made defensively by K-State. Cole Johnson had a great catch in center field.
Wasn't it the leadoff?
Yeah, that was the leadoff, and he had to take a perfect angle on it, and had to have a perfect first step, and it was important that he make that catch because he doesn't have the strongest arm in the world.
That would have been an inside the Parker if you didn't catch that.
Yes, and he reached out, put his glove up, and made a great catch. And rest of the day was very solid from the K-State defense. Some really great moments. Nick Goodwin had an excellent defensive play to barely gun someone out at first. That one went to a long review, and we were convinced it was going to get overturned and the runner would be safe, and then they called him out, and I was very surprised. But you know what? We take those, and it's Nebraska, so I don't care if they're upset.
Yeah, we sat nearby a bunch of Nebraska fans, and it was like a group of 8 or so students that were sitting with us. We were getting on the Nebraska fans' nerves.
Yeah.
We were getting on the Nebraska players' nerves.
Yeah.
So we were doing our job as a baseball crowd.
Yes.
But there's one performance in particular and it's a person who got credited with the save, a 5-inning save, the rarely seen but highly sought after. Colin Rothermel had one heck of a performance. Now you look at it and you say, oh, he gave up 3 earned runs. What's the big deal? You don't understand that he's a true freshman who pitched longer than the starter did and was left in high-pressure situations, threw more pitches than the starter did, and was just so ice-cold even when bad things were happening around him that he just went in and said, all right, I just gave up a big hit and the left fielder had an error. There's a runner on third now. Oh, well, I guess I can deal with that. Oh, there's runners on first and third. Oh, well, I guess I can deal with that. Colin Rothermel was insanely poised, and by God, someone on the team heard me because he is a strike thrower rather than a power pitcher. Someone listened, and I'm happy.
Yeah, that was what impressed me most about Colin Rothermel was his poise. Like you said, he just wasn't a power pitcher.
Finally!
Yeah, but he was phenomenal. He had a great 9th inning after giving up a run in the 9th. He then just locked down. I think he struck out 3 straight batters, as I recall. Or at the very least, all 3 of his outs were strikeouts.
All 3 of his outs were strikeouts, but I think it was one out that there was a rope to left field, and Dom ended up mishandling it and skipped all the way to the wall, runner on third, and that's the run that scored.
Nah. But Rothermel still, going 5 innings as a reliever and then getting the save, that's 5 hits, 3 earned, a walk, 4 strikeouts, 1 wild pitch, and just under 80 pitches at 79. Hassel does get the win. He only went 4 innings in this with a hit, an earned run, a walk, 5 strikeouts, 60 pitches and 14 batters. But the pitching was great. This is exactly what K-State needs going forward. Is they absolutely have to have quality pitching without going through an ungodly amount of pitchers.
Yeah,
keeping it to the starter and then 1 reliever or starter, reliever, closer. That's going to be great for preserving the arms down the stretch because the arms have been pretty hit and miss thus far. This was Griffin Hassel's first start on the year as well, and it was a pretty good start. Mm-hmm. And then
he made it an inning.
Yeah, he did. Which the bar is low, but he did cross it.
He didn't trip over it. The bar is the floor, and he didn't trip.
Yeah, which is nice. But the BatCats, this is a huge win, just also in general, over the preseason pick to win the Big Ten. Granted, Nebraska is having a very slow start to the year, very similar to K-State. They're 4-8 right now.
Yeah,
but it was a really nice win for K-State over a high quality team that had a really good season last year and brought a lot back. This is the type of confidence building win that a young team really needs. And that's exactly what this BatCat team is they're very young, filled with newcomers, not a lot of experience on this team that they can look to other than guys like Dylan Phillips and Terrence Sperlin, but Sperlin's injured right now. So, most of the lineup is new guys right now. It's Mitchell's new, Culpepper's new, Salinas is new, Dom Johnson's new. Cole Johnson is relatively new. We saw him a little bit last year, but he's fairly new. Most of the pitchers are new, save for McCullough. Then there's Rugeley as well, who plays second, I believe. Either him or Nikolov. Salinas plays first. Nikolov is second. Rugeley's DH, I think.
Yeah.
So regardless, there's a lot of new faces in this lineup. And
Culpepper. Yeah, I forgot to mention Culpepper.
I did say Culpepper.
I might be stupid.
I think I said Culpepper.
Who knows? But the point that you're making is
very
amazing.
Very young team, huge win. Even if I don't care if Nebraska's 4-8, because beating a Power 5 school at home that had high hopes in the preseason is huge. And I'm
supposed to be their get right game.
Yeah, it was. And we flipped the script on them, and now the BatCats have won 3 of their last 4 and are looking to be in a lot better spot. Granted, they're 4-7. They have a lot of work to do. They have a series coming up with Central Connecticut State, where hopefully they can sweep that. At least take 2 of 3. At least take 2 of 3. Don't drop a home series to Central Connecticut State, please.
I would really appreciate it if you didn't.
Yeah, let's not let this be Eastern Illinois of last year. That was a rough series, but and that series probably kept us out of the tournament. So it's an important series coming up, but huge win though on Wednesday evening for the BatCats. Very cold night. It was 38 at first pitch with a 15-mile-per-hour wind. So,
believe me, you felt it. I could not feel my hands by the end of this game. By the way, everyone left an inning after you, so I was just alone.
Oh, man.
Everyone had to go to chapter.
Yeah, that's tough.
That's tough. But, yeah, anything else you want to say?
No, just I'm happy with the results, and I hope they can build on it.
I am as well. I agree with you. But that pretty much wraps up this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats. Thank you all so much for listening. If you want to reach out to the show, we are at Aggieville Alleycats on Twitter. That's capital A, and capital C in cats. If you want to email us, we are aggievillealleycats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I am at ACEdward00.
I am at Connor Balthasar, capital C, capital B.
And if you want to support the show financially, you can visit the official Aggieville Alleycats merch store, where you have such designs as Play Sandstorm Cowards and Neon Alleycats. But most importantly, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. Stay safe, Alleycats.